And now, a case study of how Germany disposes of its waste. Case study coming up. We've already learnt that Hicks and Licks and Mix all deal with their waste differently. Hicks produce a lot more waste than a Lick, and a Lick produces more sort of organic recyclable waste. Now, there are some countries in the world that aren't so good with recycling and reducing and reusing and all those sorts of things. Germany, however, is one of the kings of Europe in the way that they deal with their waste, and today is the case study of Germany, and it is vital that we know this for the exam. So it's vital that we have an example of a high-income country and how they deal with their waste. This section looks at municipal waste, and municipal waste is the waste from homes and small business. Now in Germany, 60% of this is recycled. Waste is a massive business in Germany. It helps out lots of people, and it creates 250,000 jobs in waste management. My advice would be to write a heading in your book, municipal waste, and summarise everything you can, all the main points from this section. I thought after each slide I would put a summary of the important points. So here in my crude child scribbles, you can see that 14 million tonnes of municipal waste a year is produced. 60% of this in Germany is recycled, and this provides 250,000 people with jobs. If you remember from previous lessons when we looked at the United Kingdom, 80% of the waste goes to landfill. So in the early 70s, every urban area in Germany had its own landfill site, and there were 50,000 around the country. These days, so by 2008, reduced to 160 landfill sites, and these deal with domestic waste, so waste that comes from people's houses. Since 2005, all waste had to be treated before it was allowed to put into landfill, and one of these plants is owned by The Group, and it's in Lübeck in Germany, and as you can see here, it can treat 200,000 tonnes of domestic waste in a year. It's sorted and then it's incinerated. Key points from this lesson: you can see 2008, 160 landfill sites, and the rather scary sounding The Group are involved with 200,000 tonnes per annum dealt with. Burn baby burn, incineration. Another way municipal waste is disposed of is through incineration, burning. And there's 68 incinerators with an annual capacity of 68 million tonnes in Germany. Now, incinerating produces heat, and that heat can also be used as energy and used elsewhere. Now, with incinerators, because they're burning material that's already given off carbon dioxide in its creation, it's exempt from being limited because of its greenhouse gases. In Germany, there are plans to build another 100 incinerators around the country. Lots of key points here from incinerators in Germany. We already touched on the fact they're 68 and the amount of tonnage. But the thing that's the most interesting is because they've already burnt off greenhouse gases in the creation of them originally, they are exempt from having to limit their gases, and also an income can actually be made from burning things. Grünpunkt. It may sound like a Europop band, but this is actually an emblem about recycling in Germany. There's two arrows and an endless spiral. Now, if you buy products, this costs the average family between 100 and 200 a year in pounds. So that's about 1,200 dirhams. And this, which has been added to the cost by the producer to pay for recycling. So goods cost more to cover the recycling. Now, If we look on the next slide, you're going to see what this Grundpunkt symbol looks like. And there it is. If you can quote this in your exam when dealing with recycling, this is the sort of thing that the examiners like, because it shows a detailed case study knowledge. It's very specific. Too many people do exam questions and say, e.g., and then give something that's an obvious example. By quoting something like this, you're showing an in-depth understanding of a particular case study. Now, nuclear waste is regarded in a lot of respects as a clean waste, but it is a contentious issue because there's also a danger, if you remember sort of the Chernobyl situation we've talked about in lessons. How does Germany deal with its waste? Well, because it's a HIC and it can afford to, it does actually send its waste to other countries. It's a very difficult situation transporting this waste because it is a hazard and also can be a target for terrorism. Specifically, Germany sends its nuclear waste to be stored in Siberia. In Germany, low-level waste will, in the future, about now actually, from when this was written, be stored at a place called Konrad. And this is 95% of the total of nuclear waste, but only 1% of the radioactivity. Presently, low-level waste is stored around the country, around Germany, in about 50 locations, and the high-level waste is exported. Here you can see the key points on nuclear waste, this idea that it's sent to Siberia to be stored. So obviously there's environmental issues with that. And it's this fact that in Germany there are 50 sites since 2013 that store this waste. Right, the final thing is other toxic waste, other problems, other sort of things that they need to get rid of. And it's dealt with in a variety of ways. It can be shipped off to different countries. They can deal with it in themselves. There was something in the news back along about that was an issue with the world media about sending toxic waste to Albania. Have a read of what this says here, and we'll see what you think yourself. And do sort of look at the sort of the points on agriculture and pesticides as well. Have a good read through. Key point from this, the majority of other toxic waste is exported. If you're a HIC, a high-income country, it's very easy to send these things to other countries. If you can afford to pay Albania, and being sort of a poorer country, they want the money, so they'll take it on board because they'll think about cash before environment. Okay, this is the end of our flipped learning. Can I suggest you go back through, you give the headings of all the different types of waste, and specific to Germany, you make notes on it, you make revision notes, maybe a paragraph for each one. I'd like you to bring those paragraphs to the lesson and revise them. What we'll do in the lesson, we'll go through the paragraphs and then we will look at an exam question specific to this case study. I hope you've enjoyed this flipped learning experience.